Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, November 2nd, 2017. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bonova.
Here.
Commissioner Creech.
Present.
Commissioner Dorban.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kalis.
Here.
Commissioner Powers is here. Chairman Rafato is absent with prior notice, and Chairman Pro Tem Johnson.
Here. Ms. Jones, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes. Citizens' concerns and comments. Did we have anyone sign up?
No.
No. Okay. We have no consent items, so items for review. Docket numbers 2017-15, PC 17-18, and SCBA 17-43, all relating to Uptown 500, formerly Uptown 501, at 500 West Dundee Road. 2017-15 is final planned unit development approval of a mixed-use retail and residential development. PC 17-18, approval of preliminary plat of subdivision, and SCBA 17-43, appearance approval of freestanding signs. The petitioners who are going to speak, come on up. Welcome back.
Hi there. Thank you very much. It's good to be back. It seems like it's been a very short time. But I was looking at it was June, so we've done a lot of work between June and now. And Brooke and her team has been really, really helpful. Staff has been really, really great to get us to this point. So, enough of that. You've seen this project before. Good. I've got control here. So let me just see. Just again, because I had this problem last time. Anyways, you know the project. You saw us last June. It is a key component of the downtown. The elevations are all very similar. The site plan is very similar to what we presented to you a few months ago. We've made several changes to both the plan, the architecture, the materials, and the interior layout of the buildings as well, since you've seen us last. We've responded to staff concerns, your concerns and comments, and Village Board's comments, and tried to incorporate everything into the new revised plan. Team is the same. Most of us, I think all of us, are here to answer any questions. I think that's probably the best and most interactive part of the event. So let me move along here. You know where we are. We were here again last June. Very important key component of the Village Center and downtown Wheeling. So some of the elements that are similar is the shape of the building, the position of the building, courtyard, and parking area. Well, we've gone and gotten into a lot more detail with how these things are put together and how they work with both fire protection, engineering, and then also architecture and how we respond to the market and how we respond to the retail component. 7.6 acre site. We've got 2.9% open space and buffers, and that includes the dog park to the west, the creek stabilization and naturalization along the north, buffers and landscape buffers along Northgate, Dundee, and the courtyard as well. We have a total of 423 garage spaces and 131 surface spaces, and that totals 554 spaces over the whole site. Now that's for both retail and residential. The residential component of the parking is 441 spaces, which equals 1.67 spaces per unit. And of those, we've got 30 spaces on the surface and 411 spaces in the garage. The retail is still 12,000 square feet. We park that at 9.4 spaces per 1,000 square feet with 132 bicycle spaces. What that 9.4 spaces equals is 113 spaces, 12 of which are in the garage, which would be overflow or employee parking. The breakdown of the units itself is a little bit different from where we started. We're at 262 units, 111 one-bedroom, 40 studio, 106 two-bedrooms, and 5 two-bedroom townhouses. So here we go. There we go again. Again, a little more of a blow-up of the same thing. Service entrance in the same location. Secondary garage entrance as well in case there's a need for additional parking in the garage for retail. Garage access, we have added a turnaround because we've located the mailroom, which I'll get to in a second, closer to the garage entrance, which was a convenience for the future residents. Courtyard pool area has a pavilion with outdoor barbecue locations along the west side of the pavilion with a seat built into a seat wall. A shade structure along the north side of the pool, which also provides privacy to the pool and outdoor area, and other amenities, which I'll get to in a little bit later in a blow-up. I'm going to continue to do that, this whole thing. The residential component, there was some concerns about the size of the studios in an earlier meeting that we had. We have located a total of 40 studios apartments. The square footage of those is actually bumped up to 675 square feet. And they're called studios, but they're really more of a convertible one bedroom with a movable wall to provide privacy for the bedrooms. The amenity spaces. The first floor amenity, as I had mentioned before, we have a mail room, which occurs in the corner of the building over here, next to the garage, with a couple of spaces within the garage that would be provided for pull-over, pull-off, so you can run into the mail room. The previous slide showed a little bit of a turnaround. That's for FedEx, UPS, and mail delivery, so they can get direct access. The other amenity spaces are leasing and lobby space on the first floor with a gathering room, or Super Bowl room as we've called it, above that on the second floor. Access points to the building, we've got an access on the northwest corner of the building, north of the garage. We've got an access point directly north of the lobby and leasing area that would feed out to the eastern parking area. We also have 2 more access points, one adjacent to the back of the retail, and then also on the west side, on the southwest corner of the garage at the end of the hallway. We've got 12,000 square feet of retail. That 13.4 includes the second hallway that we included, as well as the service area that would enclose the retail, trash, and other services. I'm just used to right-clicking. We've got a business center on the 3rd floor, which is actually a 2-story space, so it's the 3rd and 4th floor. How that works is that it provides a private place for residents to hook up outside of their apartments. They're really handy. There was just a write-up in the Badger Herald the other day about Arlington's WeWork space. These are a private version of that, where you provide essentially, they're like study carrels for that you can reserve and use for conference calls, things like that. Other spaces like a conference table, and quiet spaces and tables to work, as well as a conference room. The 4th floor amenity above the lobby is a training area and a fitness room. So each of these floors are programmed, some 2-story spaces above the fitness area, and the training area are all public spaces that face out towards the front corner of the building to provide light and glass and activity to the street. Then on the 5th floor, we have a roof deck above the business center. And that provides an outdoor space with several outdoor tables, as well as a counter space and cabinets, and potentially some refrigeration. We're still looking at some of the final details of that, but to provide perhaps water and a space to gather. The way the garage works is there's essentially 5.5 stories of garage. On the first floor, at the back end where we actually ramp up a little bit, we were able to provide the indoor 132 bicycle spaces that we wanted to provide and are required by ordinance. The unit examples. This was there was a lot of discussion about this at our last meeting. In the yellow units up in the upper corner, these are the studios, and I hope you can see them on your screen, but you can see they're really more of a convertible 1-bedroom apartment. They're 675 square feet. They provide a movable wall or a folding wall to provide privacy for the bedroom, kitchen, and great room effect along the window wall. Every unit has a balcony. The inside corner units would have what they call a Juliet balcony. 1-bedroom units are approximately 750 to 850 square feet. 2-bedroom units are around 1,100 square feet upwards to 1,350 square feet. Where we started and where we are now with the market study and what our unit breakdowns are, we now have 40 convertible units as opposed to the 28 original studios, but we've essentially added several more square feet, so they live like 1-bedrooms. 111 1-bedroom units, 106 2-bedroom units, and 5 2-bedroom townhouse units that face Dundee Road, tucked in next to the retail, for a total of 262 units. Initially, we were at 265 units. The retail space, again, 12,000 square feet, service area that's accessed off of the entrance drive. This would be a place for restaurant deliveries or retail service deliveries, as well as a place to tuck the garbage in, the trash area away from view and from the residents. The retail can be divided up to 5 spaces. We would like to see one large user. We're still talking with several users, but just as a scenario, this is a building that's going to last a lifetime or two. The ability to break it into smaller pieces or into larger pieces was really important to us. So by providing the secondary hallway, if we were to rent a smaller 1,200 square foot module, we would be able to provide interior access to the service area as well as an exterior access to the front. To that service corridor. The architecture, this image is very similar to what you saw in June. We've added a lot more detail as it comes to materials and exterior fenestration. The views that you see here, the view on the upper left corner, view 1, that's from the northeast. So these are pedestrian views. We wanted to get an idea what it was, what this building is going to look like as you're sitting in a car or as you're walking on the sidewalk. So this upper view here, view 1, is from just on the other side of Northgate Parkway on the north side of Dundee Road, looking across at the building, and you can see the Sky Bridge, how that creates a bridge into the courtyard, as well as the retail component, the curving facade of the retail, and the tower elements that we've provided at all the corners. View 2 is from Dundee Road looking south. So you can see how the retail tucks in to the residential part of the building, and you can see the lobby area and the tower element beyond. These units right here, and I have a blow-up of this later in the presentation, are the townhouse units. Those are two-story, but they tuck right into the facade. It was important to create something that really blended with the rest of the building. View 3 is from is coming from the west, looking at north on Dundee Road. So you can see a component of the garage. The garage is a little deceiving because the garage is about 50 feet back from the front face of the building, from the front face of this corner element of the building. And we actually projected the corner out a little bit to lessen the impact of the garage. And then the view 4, which was also something people were interested in seeing, was how we fenestrated and used materials on the north side of the building. Same facade treatment as all of the others. I've got a color with material samples coming up. South elevation and color materials, we are using real brick in 3 different colors. There's a light, medium, and dark, as well as 2 types of cementitious materials. The lighter color in this band here, you can see there's 2 bands of that, and then there's a wood-like cementitious material which we're using in these bands at the balconies and across here. Now, all these other areas are 3 shades of brick. There's a medium shade here, a light shade, and then a darker shade. The townhouse elevations, you can see, really tuck right into the building. What we did was followed the window line because we thought the building was so it really had a magnificent facade. It was a really grand facade. We wanted to make sure that we didn't split it up to really create that, that these tuck right in. Now, in front of these, and you'll see in a moment, there's private patios, so that those townhouse units have a small front yard. The east elevation that you see from Northgate, again, you can see this, how the sky bridge works. There's aluminum and glass for the 2 stories of walkway that connects the south legs of the building to the fitness centers. And provides access to either the mailroom from both directions. And then on the 5th floor, there's an open corridor with railings. The glass and aluminum retail frontage is more of a contemporary look with aluminum elements that frame it. The balconies as well, this is also another interesting element. They are an aluminum system with cable, and we can talk about it in a moment. They show panels, but we're also looking at cable type of a system. So what we really wanted to do here from the beginning with the design of this building was to take elements of the more traditional architecture that has been used here in the past, but then really amp it up and create a much more contemporary and dynamic elevation by using some of these more modern materials, adding clerestory windows in the upper apartments at the corners, and providing a real dynamic design. The north elevation, same materials, same banding, same masonry, as all other aspects of the building, with the tower elements at the corners. Parapets, so the roof elevation has a little bounce to it as well. The west elevation, same, very similar as to where we were before, with green plantings along the west side to both screen and provide a little nicer look to both those in the garage and people entering on the Metro. Let's see, there was a couple of things that I wanted to mention here, And this is, I'll mention it, get into it a little bit more detail later with our path to net zero. And one of those important components was how do we treat the garage? And we needed to provide a certain amount of open space and open walls to the garage so that we didn't have to heat it and provide other elements that really drain the energy savings. Landscape and signage. We're well over the landscape requirements for the parking lot buffering. We've got a setback of 16 feet from the edge of the parking lot to the new right-of-way on Dundee Road. We do have an 8.5 foot setback from the edge of parking lot to the new right-of-way of Northgate. So we are asking for we're requesting a 1.5 foot additional setback, but we provided much more landscaping than required between the sidewalk and the edge of parking. Signage locations, there's 4 signage locations. There's the primary sign, which I've got to blow up here in a moment, that ties into the corner plaza element with a seat wall and the signage that sits on top and essentially cantilevers over the top with 3 spaces, up to 5 spaces for tenants. Secondary signs occur at our 2 entrances, one on Dundee Road and our full entrance on Northgate Parkway. And that's on the top here. That's also illuminated and provides signage space for the tenants of the retail space. And then we have an entrance sign, which is primarily for the residential, just naming Uptown 500, more of a grand sign than a locational sign. Townhouse yards, you can see here, these are the townhouses which occur next to the retail along Dundee Road. Each of the 5 units has a small fenced private front yard that gives them screening from Dundee Road and the parking lot and from the activity of the retail. Pool area, as I mentioned before, pavilion, outdoor grills with a seat wall, extensive landscaping, and fire pit and lounge area with a shade structure along the north side. I mentioned before the path to net zero, and this has really been exciting to work through. And we've introduced a lot of new components that we typically don't see in buildings this size. The high performance envelope, the appliance controls and lighting, which is common practice now, the efficient heating, ventilation, and air systems. This is something that's new to us in this building. It's not new to the market, but it adds a lot because each unit has its own system within the apartment. And I'm not the expert on this, so I'm going to just glance through it. But what I really like about it is that each unit doesn't have a magic pack, so it doesn't have an outdoor vent on the front of the building. So the elevation you see is the elevation that is there. So each of these vent out onto the roof and is screened by the screening system. Energy recovery ventilation. And then energy generation, cogeneration, and rooftop solar. And our experts are here for questions when we're done here. Civil engineering, key features, we're working through with staff on detention. We have a small vaulted detention in the parking area on the southeast corner behind the main entrance sign. Comp storage, floodway remapping, and water main looping. Again, we've got our experts here. Grading plan, experts. This was a key component of our original proposal, and we're still working through with IDOT and the neighbors to the south, and now the neighbors to the east, by providing 2 right-hand turn lanes on southbound Northgate Parkway, and providing a acceleration and turn lane on the north side of Dundee Road to both feed our limited intersection and to allow for traffic to move smoothly. And here we are. So this is the fun part. We're here for questions. We've got the whole team here, so please bring it on.
Thank you. Very impressive package and presentation. Do you need to cover anything before we go on to the commission?
Sure. Yes, I'd like to just make a brief statement about the intersection improvements. As you're aware, the town center, the Wheeling Town Center project, this project Uptown 500, they're both making improvements to the intersection of Northgate Parkway and Dundee Road. And we are all, the village along with these developers are in agreement that it would be best to work together on this issue. And the village would like to take the lead in terms of processing the IDOT permit. And there is a slight modification to the wording. Excuse me. There's a slight modification to the wording of the first condition of approval for docket number 2017-15. It shall now read, the petitioner shall execute a joint agreement for the Dundee Road and Northgate Parkway intersection improvements in accordance with the timing set forth in the project's redevelopment agreement or prior to permit issuance. Should the parties fail to come to an agreement, the developer shall complete the intersection improvements as illustrated in the final PUD plans. So it was just a slight change to the staff report wording. Are there any questions about that?
You guys okay with it?
Okay. Also, there was a note in the staff report regarding the preliminary plat. It was anticipated that there may be conditions of approval. There are not at this time. And so the motion shall read without any conditions, and it's proposed as is.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, let's start with Commissioner Dorbant.
Oh, thank you. I just have a couple questions. I thought originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we did talk about some kind of a water feature in front. What happened?
Well, space happened first of all. And so what, taking a look at it and walking the corner of Milwaukee and Dundee, looking at all the corners and then looking at where we are here, our intersection is a little splayed. And so what I looked at was how do we really activate this and essentially offset the retail as well. So like on the corner, on the southwest corner of Milwaukee and Dundee where the market is, that's benches, it's sign, it's a little bit lower key so you can see over the top of it at the retail. So looking at that, really wanting to activate that corner, created a plaza with benches and a walkway directly from the corner through the parking lot to the corner retail. There'd be a seat wall, lighting, and landscaping, along with a paver plaza.
You used the word dynamic earlier.
Yes.
And I would have to totally agree with you. This was probably one of the better put-together packets that we've had, and so I appreciate that from all of you. How are you planning to segregate employee parking and retail parking from residential parking?
They would be assigned. There would be 12 spaces that would be allocated in the garage for employees. Those would be signed for employees. That's still to be determined, but that's pretty easy to do. And what we would do is assign them along on the first floor so that they'd be accessible to the retail along the western side, so that they would be a little farther away from the residential.
Okay. And on some of your documents, and I would appreciate it if you change it before it gets to the board level, some of them say 500 and some say 501.
Okay, I thought I caught them all, because I chuckle every time I see that.
And this may be for our fire department as well, access to the roof line, that's all been to the roof.
That would be one of the reasons that we had the fire lane continue around the back. There probably, we haven't seen actual construction documents, but there probably are roof access points. It's typical in a building of that type, but that was looked at.
Okay. Pork chops, and I'm not talking about food, but I'm talking about in and out. We have a project that's over on McHenry Road, where they have a pork chop. And people are always violating it, and because there's a lot of road there and people are turning all over the place. I'm concerned about how you're going to make sure that people can't use that pork chop inappropriately.
I don't want to be glib because I almost said something bad.
Good evening, Louie Abuna with KLOA. I mean, we're going to be designing the pork chops based on IDOT standards, and they do have very extreme design requirements in terms of the radius and the design of the triangular island, you know, the width of it and the radiuses. It's not going to deter 100%. I mean, you know, they're 90-95% compliance. There are a few people who choose not to obey the restriction. There'll be signage, obviously, also to enforce it. I think Dundee Road is going to be very difficult for people to want to make a left turn, regardless. I think that, you know, they will use the signal at Northgate and enter at the north entrance. But the design is going to be such that it will make it very difficult.
Yeah. I guess I've just watched this for over the years, and it's always been an issue with me. I noticed something very unique in this plan, and that is a bicycle repair area. I've never seen this before.
We're seeing more and more youthful things, and that's, it's kids. When I say kids, I'm saying millennials that are in it. I'm old now. But I have 3 bikes, and a bike station is really important to have air place to fix your bike before you get out on the road.
Okay, now I have a question, because I understand what you're saying. Are you planning on racks inside these buildings where that people can actually set their bike on, or how do you do that? It's just new to me, and so I'm real curious.
It's actually really, it's a neat thing. It's a stand that you provide, and it would be in the bike room, and it's a place to put your bike, and there could be a locker next to it with your tools or an air provided. So some of the tools walk away, so that's one of the issues. So that's why there would be a locker, or if you're a gearhead, as they call them, you'd have your own tools. But it provides a space to, it's essentially a rack that you put your bike up on, and then you can do all the work you need to do.
Is this the wave of the future?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, their parks are providing them. Yeah, we were just working with a group up in Michigan who own, I think, 25,000 apartment units across the United States, and they're starting to provide them in all of their spaces. It's like a dog walk station in a dog park. We didn't see those 10 years ago, and now not only do you provide a dog park, but you also provide a dog wash station and a grooming station.
I think it's neat. It was cool to look at, and, you know.
And it really is easy to, it's an easy amenity for everybody. It's something everybody uses. It's a great thing.
It's very cool. Thank you. I think those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question for staff. There was a concern about different maximum heights. It was like the structure of the retail building, the 5-story building, the tops of the parapets, the mechanical screen. Are we all good with that? I mean, are you guys good with the heights of everything, and you're just gonna, like, for a, ask what variation, whatever, since the PUD, I think you were coming up with like 60 feet is kind of like a generic answer on that. I know you guys had mentioned,
Right, 60 feet is the approximate, within a few inches, height of the highest exterior wall. But then you have some other accessory structures or stairwells, elevator shafts that are even higher. That's correct?
Yes. Here's an example. We're 60 feet up to the highest parapet at these tower elements at the corner. As you can see, that's shaded out, the top of the garage, there's a stair tower that's enclosed. It's essentially at the center of the building, so it's set back from the street, I would say, a couple hundred feet. That would be 64 feet. And we wanted to make sure everything was covered because that's what we have to do. So as you see here, this on the west elevation, this is the rooftop of the essentially the penthouse, the garage stairwell penthouse. Dundee being over here, so it's pretty far back from.
okay, in some of the garages, some of the floors in the garage, I'm seeing diagonal lines for indication of handicap spaces, but I'm not seing the actual symbol on the drawing. Is that implied? Because I think I was looking at, let's see, levels 4, 5, and 6. I was looking at the parking deck. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. I didn't necessarily.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because I missed it too. When I saw the staff report, I panicked. I thought we always covered
And
that.
I'm fine with it. I mean, just before it goes to the board, I mean, level 4, 5, and 6, I didn't see indication of the actual symbol, so if you could just throw that in there, I'd appreciate it.
We actually have 17 garage spaces, so.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying, if they're properly designated, I'm fine with that. I just got to say, the exhibits in general, I mean, some of the stuff that I seen in here, your photometric plan, you got a mechanical screening sightline exhibit, irrigation plan, snow removal plan, a shading diagram, it's just, it's really a pleasure to look at this package. I mean, it's great, and I really do appreciate everybody's hard work, including staff, in getting this to happen. I really do appreciate that. One thing, kind of to piggyback on what Commissioner Dorvan said about the address, since you did reduce from 264 units to 262, could you also tweak, just make a change before it goes to the board to the traffic study and the market study to make sure that those reference 262 units?
Yes.
Great. Question is also, when you were here for preliminary, did you also say, maybe this was another project, did you also say you had a potential to have land-based parking somewhere?
I did, and what we ended up doing was actually locking that parking in, and that was because of the potential for a restaurant, which the ordinance requires quite a bit more parking than standard retail.
So you utilize that area now, correct?
Yeah, right. Initially on the southwest corner, we had landscape, and now we've provided 15 additional spaces, and I've also eked out a few spaces.
Great. Great, I appreciate that. Let's see what else. Fire department, I know in the northeast corner, we had a retaining wall back there, and I thought at the preliminary, we said, did we say the necessity for that was because of the tight turning radius there, or was it what kind of an issue, or why did we put the retaining wall, or was that just for a decorative purpose? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do, actually, and and when we met with the fire department, it was really clear that to provide safe access to all floors, we needed enough space to make sure that the banks were stabilized so that as they put their legs down, there wasn't any movement. So what we did was we took a close look at the existing grading plan and created a grading plan and reduced the amount of retaining wall to a very small portion right up at the upper east side. And that really, we'll keep it at about 30 inches, but that's where there is actually a little bit of a natural dip in the terrain.
Okay, great. Metal sunshades, is each unit going to have one, or is that like one big sunshade? And how is that like electronically deployed? And how does that go about? Can you show me where the sunshades are again? And
Sure, and I will defer to experts at this. Jeff Mulcrone, the architect with BSB. What we provided, I believe they're above the balconies, but I'll defer.
They're actually strategically located in different areas, so a lot of the sun shading is naturally done by the overhanging balconies, so it's naturally going to help shade. But in areas where we don't have those, along the top floor, we will have those bands to help screen those taller facades.
so how do those get, does like a unit owner deploy it, or how does it work?
No, it's adhered to the building. It's a static system.
Oh, I
with,
see.
With the louvered blades.
Oh, okay.
So in the brighter times of the day in the summer months, it'll help screen the building.
Okay, great. The last thing I have is, in the elevation plan, you talk about a lap siding system and fiberboard panels, something called an Equitone panel system. Can you speak to that? Because I believe that's new since you were here for preliminary, and I'd like to understand it a little bit better.
It's heavy.
So this is, these are some preliminary major components of the elevation.
Can you use that microphone right there? So our
This
audience
work?
at home
Okay.
can hear?
So we've got the three different shades of the brick, and these are all an iron spot brick. So they'll go very nicely together, a nice, clean, modern tone to it. And then just showing a little bit of the glazing, some of the colors of the aluminum balconies and the aluminum retail storefront. And then right in on the far left side, those are the like the cement board, or there's LP, there's Hardy, there's a lot of different brands that we'll still have to choose from. But those are some of the major components of the facade with that clean look. And then we also have in the middle here is the wood look cement board, and that'll be in some of the residential areas as well.
What is the thickness of those, do you know?
It's usually like a 5/8 thickness.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I would expect.
Oh, which of these is the Equitone that was referred to?
The Equitone is like a brand name. We're still researching which would be the best product. It'll be that equivalent, but it would be these fiber cement panel boards.
All right, again, a phenomenal job. I mean, we actually, a couple months ago, we as a commission took a tour and we went through some of these units, and I actually saw some of these balconies with cable balconies and sunshades. I go, wow, that would really be nice. And, now we're getting it. So this is really nice. So I really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you very much. That's it.
All right, moving on to Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple questions, since most of them have been covered already. You were starting to describe your HVAC system, which sounds rather interesting. Maybe I could hear a little more about that.
Good evening. The system that we have proposed is what's known as variable refrigerant flow technology. It's come to us primarily from Asia and Europe, where it's been there for a long time and in widespread use. And the theory is that you've got a central, what we'll call condensing unit, that will sit up on the roof. It's an air-cooled medium, so we rely on air-to-air to exchange the heat or the cooling medium from inside the building to the atmosphere. And from those units, which are strategically located on the roof, there is probably best described as tubing that will run vertically down through strategic locations inside of each apartment unit, and these things are piped vertically inside of the building. They all connect back to this unit. And the basis behind it is that it is a variable flow, exactly what it describes. So it allows the system to modulate down to the heating or cooling load that's present at a given point in time. So as the heating requirement increases, the system has the ability to modulate upward, and as the demand decreases, it does exactly the opposite. So essentially, you'll extract heat from the units in the summertime and reject them to the atmosphere. The novelty to this whole thing is, unlike a traditional split system that you might have in a typical single-family residence. I know I have them in my home. Those units have a condensing unit that sits outside. They have an indoor unit. That part is the same, and you use a refrigerant medium between the two to exchange energy from inside to outside the building and reject it to the atmosphere. What this thing does is it has the ability to draw heat from the atmosphere in the wintertime and discharge it inside the unit to heat the unit, and it does the reverse. So it's like a heat pump in that regard. The novelty here is the fact that by ganging multiple units together and allowing this thing to modulate, you achieve great efficiencies. I'll give you a small example. In a typical apartment, the cooling load in a typical small apartment, as opposed to a single-family home, might be a half to 3/4 of a ton worth of cooling. You can't get a conventional residential split unit that size. The smallest one available on the market is 1.5 tons. So if you're using a traditional split system for apartment application, which is done all over the place, your units are all oversized. So you multiply that over 260 units, you've now got significantly larger capacity than is required. So there's more maintenance, there's more refrigerant, there's more energy use. With the variable flow technology, we can essentially size the refrigerant capacity, the cooling or heating capacity exactly to what's needed for each unit, and the overall system capacity shrinks and the performance improves. So there's a dramatic increase. There's a reduction in upfront investment. There's less gas, which, of course, there's been a lot of discussion about the depletion of the ozone layer with refrigerants. Now we're addressing that with more contemporary and updated refrigerants that don't do that. But the bottom line is there's less material, there's less equipment there, far less energy consumption and better performance. The occupants will experience a higher level of performance because now this system is sized to what the unit needs, not what's available in the market as a minimum size. So that's kind of the overall view of the strategy for heating and cooling each individual unit. The other aspect of space conditioning the building is the idea that you have to ventilate it. You need to get fresh air into a building. And so what we're using there is a dedicated outside air supply unit, or in the industry it's known as a DOS unit. So what that does is it brings fresh air from the outside, brings it into the building, and will exhaust it back out, the stale air back out. And it does that, it will allow us to condition that air and filter it before it comes into the space and exhaust it back out. Inside of that unit, one of the key features of that is what we'll call an energy recovery medium. And typically it's a wheel. And so what that does is it allows us to take the energy from the air that we're exhausting out of the building and use that to precondition the air that's coming into the building. And that's a continuous cycle that just continues onward. So the advantage to that is you get very high quality fresh air. You get the proper amount because you've got a unit that's dedicated to doing that. You pressurize the building so that you're not infiltrating air, which is not good from an energy perspective. This allows us to reduce the energy footprint of the building down to the absolute minimum possible. So basically you get increased performance, dramatic improvements in energy performance, and a much more comfortable building and healthier building to live in. So That hopefully gives you a sense of what the overall strategy is. And did I address the,
Yes, yes, you have. I'm somewhat familiar with the system.
okay,
So your
Excuse me,
heat, what is your heat source
Commissioner
exactly?
Creech, just a
I'm
second.
sorry.
What is the heat source exactly?
Well,
I understand the cooling part, but what about where's the heat source? Or is this,
this is an air-cooled system, so it functions like a heat pump in there.
so is it generally work like a heat pump?
It does. I think in simplistic terms, yes, it does. And so it behaves very much like that. There's a compressor that's built into this condensing unit that sits outdoors, and that has, the difference is, it's not just an on-off, it's a variable volume kind of situation. So it modulates up and down to the load, but the heat source is in fact the atmosphere. We're extracting heat through this refrigeration cycle in the wintertime.
Have you used this system in our area?
Yes, it's gaining widespread traction in the Chicago area now, and elsewhere too. It's all over the country. You've probably seen a variation on this kind of system that is earmarked for single-family residential homes. They're the companies like Mitsubishi and other folks that make this, and there are a number of folks that have this technology, Trane and several other well-known names out there. We're not on the bleeding edge anymore. It's leading edge technology, but it's not the bleeding edge, so to speak. But what they do is you'll see this in single-family homes a lot now, where you'll have an indoor little cassette unit. Sometimes they mount on the wall. We're not doing that here. We're actually building these into a ceiling cavity and ducting the unit so that it's invisible to the space. And the advantage, too, one of the other ones that I didn't mention, is they don't require floor space. So we now pick up living space within the unit, which is attractive, too, I think, in terms of offering a larger unit for what you want it for, not for mechanical equipment. But the bottom line is, these are a variation on what you've seen maybe in some of the builders' magazines, if you look at those kinds of things. And so, yes, but they're really picking up a lot of momentum in the commercial sector, and particularly in multifamily residential. We've got a building under construction right now on the north side of Chicago that's got the RF system going in, and you'll see them in a lot of places. And the contracting world has really picked up on this technology too. So there's a growing and deeper basis, a pool of contractors that are familiar with the technology and are capable of administering it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Creech, just a second. Could you give your name to
Yes,
our
I'm sorry.
recording secretary? I was
I'm
remiss in...
Tom Voltaggio. I'm principal with Interface Engineering. So
You have a card for our recording
I do.
secretary?
I can get you one. Sorry, it's a lot to spell.
I didn't want to stop you. You're on a...
We are
real
the
roll there.
mechanical and electrical consultants for the project. So, okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Creech?
The floodplain issues that we discussed earlier along the north side of the property, you said you were going to kind of like go ahead with getting this started. Where are you at with this? There was some boundary issues or elevation issues.
And again, I'll ask for your name for the recording secretary.
Kevin Lewis. I'm Kevin Lewis with IG Consulting.
Thank you.
And let's see if I get through to... Okay, so this is not the exhibit that's been prepared for the FEMA submittal, but what's going on is there's the mapping area showed that there was a portion of the property that went like this that was part of the floodway. And so there are two components in this. The first component is the floodway. Well, that area was mapped incorrectly. The grades did not support. That's where the creek, the drainage ditch flows. And so that area is being corrected through what's called a letter of map change through FEMA, which is the process for them to correct their maps to reflect the actual conditions. So that's component one. Component two is this entire property has parts of it that are in the floodplain, which is an area that when the water rises up, the area can become inundated with flood water, not direct flow, but the water would flow across that area. As part of the process to remove an area from the flood plain, you have to provide compensatory storage, which is an area of storage that compensates for the area that you're filling in. And as part of this project, we are providing that compensatory storage in part of the same basin system that was constructed through Heritage Park. So it's measured on a cubic foot or acre foot basis, depending on the volume that you're providing. And so that's part of our redevelopment agreement to utilize part of that volume. So there's the floodway and the floodplain.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'd like to thank you guys. Great packet, great presentation. Good job. And staff as well. Great job for staff.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I had only two concerns last time, and both of them were addressed. The first concern was about the pool, and I was afraid that we'll never see the light, and they will see the light. I can see it in a study. And the other one was with townhomes, and the way you change it is great. I have absolutely no concerns. Thank you so much. And it is, I will repeat, it is a great presentation. Whatever questions we could possibly have, they were answered in this package. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Commissioner. That energy savings plan, was that part of the preliminary or was that new? I can't remember. The journey to ground zero or?
Net zero, we were aiming for it.
Not ground zero.
We kind of danced around it. We didn't promise, but we were really intent on creating it.
So I mean, obviously I do like that. I didn't remember it from last time, so thank you for that. And the lighting I saw in the plan, great lighting, very modern and everything. Do you know, and maybe this is for staff, does it match the town center lighting like we've asked was that a consideration?
No, it wasn't
Because
something that we requested, or I don't think we were thinking about it. You may be thinking of the Burger King site, which is almost integrated in terms of proximity to the town center.
Okay.
And so this being across the street, I think they can have their standalone design.
Yeah, okay. And then you mentioned you're still, and actually, never mind, that was addressed. Yeah, going last is tough because there's a lot of questions, but again, beautiful plans. Excited about it, thank you. I'm good.
That's it?
Yep, thank you.
All right, that leaves me. On some of the drawings, this is just a housekeeping thing before it goes to the board. On some of the drawings, I believe it's all in the landscape drawings, some of the notes didn't transfer over. You just got boxes and some letters and.
Yikes, okay. Yeah. I'll make sure that was a lot of work.
At least in our packet. Now, I don't know, I'm sure on your drawings they were complete, but.
I'll make sure that
they didn't transfer over right. Is that roof deck open, or is there a roof on the roof deck?
There'd be a partial roof over the counter area.
Oh, okay. And what's the height of that bridge, the clearance height?
The clearance height is 2 stories, so I believe it was 22 is the minimum that we would be. I think it was 24 was what we were aiming for, because each floor is 11.4, so it's 2 floors, so it's 23 feet.
Okay. Any security as far as the residential garage? I mean, is there going to be a gate or anything like that?
The outer would be gated. I believe we've talked about the inner gated, and that's typically what we've done is a gated system where it would either be a key card or a fob or a cell phone application.
Okay.
Everything's changing so fast.
The parking on the ground level, we saw no handicap parking indicated on that.
And we'll change that as we move through the system, move through the process here. There are labels on the disabled spaces, but they're very small. So I think, let me just run through here. I can let you know exactly what we had on the first floor. We had a total of 17 in the garage, which was...
I'm talking outside, though.
Oh, outside.
For the
Yeah,
retail.
again, the labels didn't translate, but I've actually counted that up. When I saw the staff report, we've got, I think, 6 spaces outside.
Yeah, I think they need to be clarified on some of these plans, so they're quite visible.
Will do.
And let's see, on the signage, I was wondering if you really need a panel sign on the corner versus getting something integrated into your wall, similar to the Milwaukee and Dundee.
Yes, actually, I was looking at, I'm pulling it up here, and because I really do want to talk about this. And what we've done is created a place where it sits, essentially sits on top of the seat wall and is integrated into the design of the wall. So Uptown 500 would project above that seat wall. The reason why I did that was, depending on what the effect is on the other 4 corners, what the other applicants are going to be doing on those corners, like at Milwaukee, is there going to be a Village of Wheeling inlaid into the, or projected off the wall, and in which case, then there would be space to do that, and it wouldn't essentially take away from the sign itself. It's hard to explain, so let me, I thought this through in detail. As I was standing there on the corner, there is a, so this is an older version. The sign essentially cantilevers over the top, except it's pushed over. It's a little over on one side. So what I was thinking was, is our sign would essentially be over here, and then at the corner, you could put a Village of Wheeling, or depending on what the other corners are gonna say, could be right on the sign, on the wall here. So what you would have your space, and we would have our space.
I was, I guess, questioning the need for another sign with tenant panels. You've already got one on Dundee, you've got one on Northgate, and why not just make it a classy Uptown 500 sign, maybe raise that wall a little bit and put it right on there? You really need another panel sign, I guess, is my question.
That's a good point, and I think we can take a close look at that, because the way we've designed the building, the sign panels on the face of the building might accommodate that.
Right, because you'll see the retail space behind it, and I'm sure they're going to want signs.
However, I do want to just give you the one, because I like that idea, and I think if it's a tasteful, classy sign, yes. Oftentimes, especially with Class A retailers, they have certain requirements of what they want to see. And so I would love to say yes, but I would also like to say that if there's somebody comes in, like a Maggiano's or something, I don't know, whatever, they may have requirements.
Okay, well, at least consider it.
We'll definitely do that, and I think that's a really good point.
Might be a good. I think that's everything I had. Anything else from staff? Oh,
I do.
Commissioner Darban.
I hate to put you on the spot, but I will. I know you talked about a restaurant space. What did you envision for the other retail spaces?
Well, all I can address is what the market is driving right now. And restaurants, fast food is number one. They're taking most of the spaces. Number two are more of a convenience-oriented type of a use, especially with the amount of tenants and residents that are going to be in this area. So when I say that, that might be, and I'm going to have to, I can't be an expert at everything. That's why we have all the experts here.
I'm not going to hold you to a prompt.
So I'm going to defer to Eric or Danny. on that, because I think, because that's something we've thought through a lot.
I think so.
Hello, everybody. Danny Rezko, DAC Developments. I'm a developer on the project. We did a market study looking at potential retail use cases. The market determined that the two biggest needs in Wheeling now are, as Joe mentioned, food and beverage, and also what's called general services. So you can imagine if we were to subdivide it, it could be maybe an AT&T or a Verizon, maybe even a small, I guess, boutique gym, something like that, to serve not only the 260-plus tenants here, but also across the street and across the other way. We do still believe that the greatest and most likely use is a single restaurant user, or maybe multiple concepts, but still technically a single user taking the whole space. And that's where most of the traction that we've gotten so far is. What Joe showed is the space can be laid out for up to 5. We don't necessarily need 5, but the design and architecture can support it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions from the commission? Staff?
So I, based on your comments, added a condition of approval that prior to board review, the handicap parking labels, the landscaping text boxes, and the project name shall be corrected in all plans. There wasn't a comment as well regarding updating studies. I don't know if we were talking about
The market
traffic-
study,
the
the market and
study.
traffic study, they had the number of units at 264 instead of
And I think that's because it was completed prior to
No, that's
preliminary
fine.
PUD.
I'm just saying, if it's still available, they could just tweak that before it goes to the board.
Well,
That's what I'm looking for.
my concern is it's more than just tweaking the number of units.
Okay.
It's really, it would have to be a complete redo of the study
they would change
itself.
the
And
formulas.
so
Okay, that's
I
fine.
think it's noted that the
That's fine.
study is based upon the concept at preliminary PUD.
Okay,
But
that's-
the changes are not substantial
Okay,
since then.
that's right.
Okay. Then I do not have any other conditions of approval. Was there something that I forgot? Anything else? Okay.
Anything from engineering?
Engineering had their own conditions of approval. I'm sure those have already been addressed in the memo that we gave you. There was 4 conditions of approval for engineering.
There are 4, let me pull it up. 1 second, please. It stated that all the issues would be addressed at final engineering. And then 1 condition was with regard to the 3-party agreement for the intersection improvements. That's what I stated at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, the memo does state the following conditions of approval are recommended.
Okay.
So can we reference that in a motion?
Sure.
Just the conditions in the engineering memo? Or do you need to repeat them?
Do we need to say what they are?
We need to state them for the record. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the memo from the engineering division. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so the 4 conditions of approval as stated in the October 30th memo, engineering memo are: the developer shall prepare a bank stabilization plan for the south side of Buffalo Creek from the railroad tracks to the Northgate Parkway Bridge. 2, work with village staff to prepare a joint agreement between Wheeling Town Center Development, Uptown 500 Development, and the village for public road improvements.
Which you do have covered already.
Yes. 3, the developer shall prepare the stormwater plan from the development site to the village proposed proposed storm sewer crossing under Dundee Road for the conveyance of detention runoff from the development site. And 4, floodway will need to be remapped at the northwest corner of the development. I think we can write a condition to reference that memo.
That would be fine. As long as we tie it in somewhere. Anything else, Kyle?
That's about
And
it.
anything from the fire department that's still hanging out there?
No, all of the comments that we had were in our staff report, and we've met several times and had numerous discussions with the petitioner, and they've worked diligently to address the issues.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so I stated that all conditions of approval noted in the October 30th engineering memo shall be addressed.
Any comments from the commission about the signs, since that is a separate docket?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I guess I heard what you said, and I guess there are tenant panels off of Northgate Parkway in Dundee, so I kind of know what you were saying about the potential frontage, sign frontage. If that's going to change somehow, I think in a way you may be questioning the need for the tenant panels there. So if that could potentially change, is there a way we could still approve this packet, and with the possibility of that change not being the way it appears in our packet now?
So what you could do is you can approve the sign as proposed, and then if they want to change it, they would come back to you for approval for a different sign.
But that's not what you necessarily asked, right?
Well, it sounds like they're interested in the idea, and that they're gonna look at it. Any other comments
I
from the
guess
petitioner on it?
I would just like to ask the petitioner, do you feel the need that you definitely do need those tenant panels on that particular sign in the corner there, with the panels being on Dundee and Northgate?
I think you said it depends on which tenant it is, right? And that's,
okay.
we don't know that yet, so it's like, if it's our recommendation that maybe it shouldn't be there, and then maybe in the future, if there's a tenant that requires it, then they come back for approval, something like that.
The signs they're asking for do exceed the village code, right? As
Yes,
far
with
as-
regard to the number of signs and the setback of the signs, they are requesting sign variations through the PUD process. So that
Right.
needs to be addressed at, either tonight, or I would assume tonight, before this goes to the board.
Unless we just hold off on SCBA 1743.
Right, the design can change, but the variations would need to be recommended tonight.
Okay.
But there wouldn't be any variation per se for the sign in the corner, correct? It would just
Yes,
be-
because of
But it's still a
the
sign,
number of signs in
Oh.
the total development.
Okay.
so it'd still be a variation. Okay. So, on 2017-15, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Dorban, seconded by Commissioner Blanova. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Dorban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Mr. Kalis?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes. On PC 17-18, approval of a preliminary plat of subdivision, there is no conditions.
Correct.
Motion approved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Powers. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Seconded by Commissioner Dorban. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Powers vote yes. Commissioner Dorban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes. And finally, docket SCBA 17-43, appearance approval of freestanding signs. Do I hear a motion?
Hold on, I just
Yep.
want to state for the record, I have 2 conditions of approval drafted in the staff report for this,
I'm sorry.
for this docket number.
I got ahead of you.
First, that the displayed name and address shall be consistent with the plat of the with that of the project. And 2, that plans shall be provided to demonstrate vision clearance for the proposed setbacks of the signs.
Who made the motion?
Nobody yet.
Nobody. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Dorban, seconded by Commissioner Blanova. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Dorban?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers vote yes, and Chairman Johnson.
Yes. We will have some things for you to sign. Okay, whoever's signing, come on up.
Whoever wants, right, or crayon?
All right. We got one more. Okay, so this is 2017-15 SCBA. PC.
And the appearance of the sign.
Oh, well, see, I wasn't here for preliminaries.
No, I mean,
Oh.
no one here
Right,
said no, so I went through it with them.
right. Just that they may decide to.
I can always do it. No one, you can always come back. Can you say this is-
Because if they do get a single tenant, they may not want those panels.
No.
Did forget something. That they should have blank panels, so if you don't flip them upside down. No, this is not a public hearing, so I don't need to close it.
Public hearing?
No.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a copy of this.
These are your copies, you can sign them at your leisure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the great package. Okay. All right, moving on, approval of minutes. We have none. Other business. Commissioner Creech.
I have nothing tonight, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Kalis.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Commissioner Dorband.
I do have something. I've been at a Chamber of Commerce conference for the last couple of days, and it's been very enlightening for me to have so many people come up and say, "You're from Wheeling. Boy, you really have done so much with your town," and how exciting it is. And though there was a lot of really, really positive comments about Wheeling, and this is just one more case of how we've improved things and how nice Wheeling is and is becoming even better.
Thank you. Commissioner Blanova.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
I just want to thank staff again for the hard work on this packet, and I really appreciate the notes they go through. It was really thorough and helped me out a lot. So thank you. I have nothing else.
Thank you, and I'll echo those comments on this packet. It was great. So nice having something so complete to work with. And the only other thing I have is some personal news. I am a grandfather for the third time as of about 5 hours ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Miles Daniel Least has been brought into the world. And with that, anything from staff or engineering? Mallory?
No.
Anybody?
Nope.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.